Welcome back, Ascension family. Today I'm sharing another story from my second book, The Chosen One. In the second chapter are all stories about my past life healings. The scribed messages hold a light frequency to heal your life as well. I'm Patrizia Trani, an Ascension healer, Christ consciousness teacher, etheric surgeon, and cosmic light worker. I recommend that you just sit and close your eyes and just allow my words to wash over you and the light frequency to transmit through your whole body to receive the healing as well. This story is titled Nerod's Self-Gratification. Nerod was a priest in Egypt and was working within the temple of prayer and invocation to the gods. Nerod worked with the fire element, and with this, he was particularly powerful. It was also associated with the dragon energy, and his eyes shone red with self-gratification and the need for admiration and power. He had a successor who was his assistant. In his working and development structure, if the assistant showed growth, strength, loyalty, and will, then and only then he would become the successor if Nerod either left or died. But Nerod was living a life of two faces, one that held the hand of a suffering worshipper handing bread out into the streets to the hungry, and the other who would spell cast and serve only for his own wealth and growth in status and fame. He was ego-driven, concealed by a mask of faith. His assistant, David, was less vocal, but his belief and mindset was cut from the same cloth. It was quite interesting to observe that only men worked at this temple. Most people felt that the sun god's resident was present. However, there were plenty of hidden agendas. Healers and priestesses associated with the feminine felt quite repelled as there was much ego and passion of sexual nature. It was invasive and overemphasized. Most women in the surrounds felt somewhat uncomfortable here as the men came to pray. In the temple worked another man named Adhia, and most people called him Adi. Adi was in his 60s, which was a sign of a very fit and healthy man for that time. He believed that the sun god kept his fire alight within his spirit and that he was healthy and well all those years because he served in the temple for 32 years. And he was a good man of pure heart and integrity. He ran the temple's prayer sessions, he cleaned, made candles and mixed oils and resins for medicinal purposes and space clearing. He also performed general maintenance of the temple and its grounds. He never had a day off to rest. He'd watch the sunrise and sunset each day, or if he didn't feel like it, he'd worked and served the gods with sincerity. Adi had observed Nerod and was quite questioning some of his motives. However, Adi would never make that known. He would be severely punished if discovered. One day, David noticed Adi watching Nerod. "I cannot read your thoughts, Adi, but I can see it in your eyes. You question the man before you." Nerod was at the altar praying and performing a ritual. "Oh," Adi explained, "I'm sorry, Your Greatness. I didn't mean to stare. I didn't sleep well last night and..." "Nonsense," David exclaimed. "You are very transparent, loyal follower, and I can see your doubt, and you're probably not wrong." David was becoming mysterious and unpredictable. David had learned a lot from Nerod and developed the same hunger for power and gratification. What a sad time for this community and this temple, as it was once led by the great lion, as he was known, brave, virtuous, and faithful. He'd left the temple and led great armies to victory. Anyway, Adi, your eyes and your mouth utter different stories. I can see and I can feel. I am a seer and I can feel your dividedness as well. Adi felt a little more comfortable to speak. "Well, yes, I do question the integrity of this priest. I have seen many come and go, and none his energy. The masses of men who flock here seem to get what they need from him, though all of their crops and businesses are very prosperous indeed. So with the sun god's blessing, I assure all is well. David then began to open up to Nerod's plans to work his way into the temple clergy and to eventually have leadership in a number of connecting temples in the country. He had focus and drive, and he was powerful in his presence, which would influence and encourage the emperor. Nerod's passion and driving force was power, wealth, fame, and women, similar to the emperor's. Adi had a very close associate on the clergy. In fact, it was his brother-in-law. Adi felt compelled to warn his brother-in-law about the persuasive, self-gratifying priest trying to manipulate the system to serve himself. David was happy with Nerod moving on and therefore encouraged him. He'd share comments like, "You're bound and to such greatness and glory, master." Now David realized and cunningly knew exactly what he was doing. David had aspirations just as Nerod did, and with Nerod on the clergy, David could step into the leader of the temple. David had already realized how observant Adi was. David certainly didn't want Adi snooping around him when David takes over the temple. And so he tells Adi about Nerod, knowing Adi would tell his brother-in-law, which will of course a bit of a stir even for Nerod to understand that Adi had betrayed him and therefore have him removed for the act of disloyalty and betrayal. This plan and circumstances followed precisely and without any adverse effects on Nerod at all. Because the clergy saw Adi as jealous and spiteful, and after so many years of hard work and service, Adi could never be the priest at the temple, and therefore such actions were justified as strong motives. Without Nerod making Adi aware of his knowledge of the betrayal, Nerod prepared a spell and ritual that released a viper into Adi's heart, and then it severed his vocal cords as he tried to scream. It then released all of its venom into his stomach, poisoning him very painfully and slowly. Adi, of course, passed away. Nerod took position at the Temple of Egypt and the second in command of the clergy. David took over the prayer temple. There were dark days indeed. Healing has taken place. Thank you once again for everyone listening to this amazing, another story of one of my past lives. In the descriptions below are all links to all the workshops and all of the services that I have to offer. Looking forward to our next story. Namaste.